Greetings everyone. Today I'll be speaking on a topic which forms the basis for the understanding of material science, structure of matter and principles of adhesion. Hi everyone. I am Dr. Sushant Epai, Principal, Professor and Head Department of Prosthodontics, Rajiv Gandhi College of Dental Sciences and Hospital, Bangalore. At the end of this lecture, the audience will be in a position to know what is matter, molecule and atom. What are interatomic bonds? What is an interatomic bond distance and bonding energy? What is an atomic arrangement and diffusion? What is the meaning of change of state? And lastly, what is adhesion and bonding and its applications in dentistry? First and foremost, let us see what is the meaning of the word matter. Matter is anything that occupies space and has weight. A molecule is the smallest particle of the substance which can exist on its own. An atom is the smallest particle of any element that shows the chemical behavior of that element. So that brings us to the question as to what is an element. An element is a substance that is made entirely from one type of an atom. For example, hydrogen. It is made from atoms containing a single proton and a single electron. If the number of protons change, then the element changes. Now let us see what is the structure of an atom. An atom consists of a central nucleus surrounded by electrons in the form of concentric shells. The shells are named as KLMNOPQ. With K the innermost shell and Q is the outermost shell. As can be seen from this diagram here, K is the innermost shell and Q is the outermost shell, and you can see these are the concentric rings. What are interatomic bonds? Now the forces that hold atoms together are called interatomic bonds. There are basically two types of bonds. The first is called as the primary bond and the second can be called as a secondary bond. The primary bonds are generally chemical in nature, while the secondary bonds are characterized by physical forces. The physical properties of materials are based on these bonds. Now, what is the meaning of primary atomic bonds? As has already been said, they are very strong bonds and they are generally chemically in nature. And the first type of the primary atomic bond is called as the ionic bond. Now, an ionic bond is formed due to the attraction of a positive and a negative charge. For example, the formation of a sodium chloride molecule. Sodium contains only one valence electron in its outermost shell, so it's relatively more positive, while chlorine atom has 7 electrons in its outermost shell, so that makes it relatively more negative. So this sodium and chloride is an attraction between a positive and a negative atom, so hence it forms a molecule sodium chloride. Now in dentistry, this ionic bonding takes place with glass ionomer and polycarboxylate cement with tooth structure. Here the cement is negatively charged while the tooth is positively charged. Now in the sodium chloride molecule, in the sodium atom, the K shell has 2 electrons, the L shell has 8 electrons, the M shell has 1 electron. While in the chlorine atom, the K shell has 2 electrons, the L shell has 8 electrons and the M shell has 7 electrons. So with this we can see that the chlorine atom is more negatively charged relatively because the M shell has 7 electrons, its outermost shell has 7 electrons, while the sodium atom has only 1 electron. So comparatively, sodium will be positively charged while the chlorine atom will be negatively charged. So this attraction of positive and negative forms an ionic bond. The second type of bond is called as a covalent bond. Here the bonding takes place by sharing of electrons. So in many chemical compounds, two valence electrons are shared with that of the other combining atom and it becomes stable. For example, hydrogen molecule. So one hydrogen atom joins with another hydrogen atom to form a hydrogen molecule. So single valence electron in each hydrogen atom is shared with that of the other combining atom. Now this kind of bond in dentistry is seen between the carbon-carbon bond of denture-based resins or the silicon-oxygen bond of dental ceramics. As we can see here, the hydrogen has got one electron that is shared with the oxygen atom, as we can see here. So one hydrogen atom is shared with the oxygen atom, and here also one hydrogen atom is shared with the oxygen atom. This leads to 8 electrons in the outermost shell. Having 8 electrons in its outermost shell, the molecule becomes very stable. So here you have 2 hydrogen atoms with one oxygen atom forming a molecule of water. The other example is between carbon and hydrogen to form methane. As you can see, carbon has 4 electrons, hydrogen has 1 electron. So 4 of hydrogen can combine with the 4 outermost electrons in the carbon to form 8 electrons in the outermost shell, leading to a very stable molecule of methane. The third type of primary bond is called as the metallic bond, and as the name suggests, it's seen in metals. Now generally the atoms of metals lose their outermost valence electrons, and once they lose their valence electrons, they become positively charged. So they are stacked against each other with the outermost valence electrons of each atom forming a cloud. So this cloud keeps all the atoms together, and it acts like a glue. So the freed electrons surround them like a cloud and acts like a glue to hold the atoms together. It's also this cloud of electrons which is responsible for the metal to conduct, be a good electrical conductor as well as a thermal conductor. So this kind of bond is called as a metallic bond, which is quite strong and stable. Now among the three, the covalent bonds are the strongest, followed by the ionic bonds and the metallic bonds. Now as far as the metallic bonds are concerned, they are in the opposite ends of the spectrum. Some of the metallic bonds approach covalent bonds in strength, but there are some metallic bonds which are not very strong. For example, mercury has bonds that are not even strong enough to hold the atoms in place at room temperature, resulting in it being a liquid. We've been speaking about primary bonds till now. The primary bonds are the ionic bonds, the covalent bonds, and the metallic bonds. Now let us talk about the secondary bonds. Now in secondary bonds, there is no sharing of electrons like the primary bonds. Now the attraction between the molecules in case of secondary bonds takes place due to charge variation among molecules. Now there are two concepts of secondary bonds. One is called the hydrogen bonding and the other one is called van der Waals forces. What is a hydrogen bond? The example of a hydrogen bond is actually a water molecule linking to another water molecule. Now a water molecule generally is formed by covalent bonding, but each water molecule is joined to the other water molecule by a hydrogen bond. Now this bond takes place because of the formation of what is called as a permanent dipole. So therefore the positive end of one molecule attracts the negative end of another molecule, and so on. Now, what is the meaning of a dipole? Now, as you can see in this picture, hydrogen is linked with these two electrons to the oxygen atom. So this part of hydrogen is positive. Why? Because it has no electrons on that shell. But if you see the oxygen, it has got electrons all over. So this makes it negative. So the hydrogen end of the water molecule is positive, while the oxygen end of the water molecule is negative. Similarly, it's positive here as well. So this negative part of the oxygen atom gets linked with the hydrogen, because the hydrogen is relatively positive. It links with the negative charge of the oxygen atom, and hence these two molecules are linked. So this is what is called as a formation of a dipole, wherein one part of the molecule is positively charged and the other part of the molecule is negatively charged. Now, since this is a permanent representation, this is called as a permanent dipole. Now, in van der Waals forces, the dipole is not permanent, it is fluctuating. Okay, these are generally the electrons of the atoms are distributed equally around the nucleus. So if you see an atom, the electrons are generally distributed equally in the atom. But sometimes what happens, the electrons, they tend to get concentrated on one part of the molecule. So that part of the molecule becomes negatively charged and the opposite end becomes positively charged. So this creates what is called as a temporary fluctuating dipole. So one dipole attracts another dipole, that is negative end of one molecule with the positive end of the other molecule. As can be seen in this diagram, the electrons are fairly distributed in this molecule, but at times it generally comes to one end of the molecule. So this end of the molecule is positively charged and this end of the molecule is negatively charged. So this negative end of the molecule will join another molecule which will be positively charged. But this does not remain permanent. This generally has a tendency to change. Hence it is called as a fluctuating dipole. Unlike in the case of a water molecule, which is a permanent dipole. Now let us talk about what is the meaning of interatomic bond distance and bonding energy. Now, as the atoms move too close to each other, the negative charge of each atom tends to result in a repulsive force. But on the other hand, if there are any forces that tend to attract the two atoms together, wherein the repulsive force and the attractive force become equal in magnitude but opposite in direction. When this happens, the position of the atoms is called as an equilibrium position. So in equilibrium position, the forces of attraction and the forces of repulsion are same but opposite in direction. At equilibrium position, the interatomic distance, which is the center of one atom to the center of the other atom, is called as the interatomic distance. So at equilibrium position, the distance between the center of one atom, the center of the other atom, is called as interatomic distance. Now, what is the meaning of bonding energy? It is also called as interatomic energy and is the amount of energy that has to be supplied to separate the two atoms. Now, let us say that the two atoms are in equilibrium position. Now, the amount of energy that is required to separate the two atoms is called as bonding energy or interatomic energy. Now, as the two atoms come closer, the energy does not change much. As the resultant force approaches zero, the energy decreases, but it does not reach zero. The resultant force never reaches a complete zero. There is always some kind of force that is present. There is always an amplitude of atoms present even at the equilibrium position. The energy increases rapidly with even a slight change in interatomic distance. So any energy that's applied to the two atoms causes an increase in energy. The minimal energy corresponds to a condition of equilibrium and defines the equilibrium interatomic distance. So there is a minimal energy. The energy does not become zero. There is minimal energy between the two atoms, and this corresponds to a condition of equilibrium. Now, what is the meaning of thermal energy? Thermal energy is the kinetic energy of the atoms or molecules at a given temperature. Now, as we already know that as we increase the temperature of a body, the body has got a tendency to expand. So higher the temperature, the amplitude of the atoms increases, or it leads to an increase in the kinetic or the internal energy. So the energy of the atoms, once energy is supplied to it, is called as the kinetic energy of the atom. As the temperature increases, the overall effect represents a phenomenon of thermal expansion. So as you increase the temperature, the atoms move away from each other, causing a thermal expansion. As you increase the heating further, it will lead to breakage of the bonds and ultimately lead to a change of state, wherein a solid will then become a liquid, and as the heating continues, the liquid will then tend to become a gas. That is called as a change of state. Next, let us talk about what is called as a crystalline structure. Now, in a crystalline structure, there are atoms that are arranged in a regular pattern. Now, this arrangement of atoms in a regular pattern is called as a space lattice. Now, it can be defined as any arrangement of atoms in space in which every atom is situated similar to every other atom. That means the relationship of one atom to the other is the same as the relationship of the neighboring atom to its neighboring atom. So, each atom is equidistant from each other, and the whole structure is made up of atoms that are stacked in this manner. Many of the metals that are used in dentistry belong to the cubic system. So if you see the metals that are used in dentistry will have atoms stacked against each other in the form of cubes. So it is called as a cubic system. As we can see here, each atom is equidistant from each other. All the atoms are in a space lattice that is equidistant from each other and is forming a cube. So this is called as a simple cubic structure. Now, in a simple cubic structure, if you have an atom that is right in the center of the body, it is called as a body centered cubic. And if it is there on each face of the cube, 6 atoms on the 6 faces, it's called as a face centered cubic. So you can see this is called as a simple cubic, this is called as a body centered cubic, and this is called as a face centered cubic. On the other hand, what is a non-crystalline structure? A non-crystalline structure will not have atoms that are stacked against each other in this regular manner. They may have part of the structure which may have an atomic arrangement which is like a crystalline arrangement, but that's only for a small part. But the rest of the parts will have a disordered atomic structure. So such a structure is called a non-crystalline structure. The other name for a non-crystalline structure is also called as amorphous structure. Now, for example, glass is considered as a non-crystalline solid, or it's called as an amorphous solid. The reason being is that it has got atoms that form a short range order. Now, what is the meaning of this word short range order? Short range order is the same as the atoms that is seen in atoms that are seen in a metal. So they are arranged in a lattice wherein the atoms are equidistant from each other and in a proper manner, but that's only part of the structure. The other part of the structure, there is a lot of disorder among the atoms. Now this kind of arrangement is generally seen even in liquids, wherein the range of disorder is more than any kind of order. Hence, a non-crystalline structure is also called as a supercooled liquid. It's also called as a supercooled liquid because the atomic structure, the arrangement of the atoms in these structures resembles that of liquids. Since it is hard, it is like a solid, it is called as a supercooled liquid. So glass is also called as a supercooled liquid. Now let us talk a little bit about stress and strain. Now what is stress and strain? These are mechanical forces which can increase or decrease the normal position of the atoms. Now the mechanical force across a given area acting on the atoms, thus displacing them, is called a stress. Now stress is how the body reacts to an external force. The external force itself is not called a stress. There is an external force on the body, but the body reacts in the form of stress. When this stress causes a change in the body structure, it is called as strain. So to repeat, there is a force on the body reacts in the form of stress. If there is any change in the dimension of the body, it is called as strain. Now what is the meaning of the word diffusion? Now atoms diffuse in solid state just like liquids and gases. So if you just have a solid that is placed, any structure that is placed, you will generally see atoms diffusing, though it is not visible to the naked eye and it does not cause any change of shape of the solid. So at temperatures of absolute zero, which is nearly minus 275 degrees centigrade, the vibrations of the atoms completely ceases. As I have mentioned earlier, there is generally at normal room temperature, there is no stoppage of the vibration of atoms. So when you see a solid or you see any structure that is there, the atoms are always in the state of some kind of the atoms will always have some kind of vibration. But at absolute 0 degree centigrade, at absolute zero temperatures, that is minus 275 degrees centigrade, the vibration of atoms ceases completely and the energy is completely drained out from the body. That means there is absolutely no heat present in the body. When there is no heat present in the body, there is no energy in the atoms, so the atoms ceases to oscillate. So at normal temperature, the kinetic energy is localized and varies from atom to atom, with some having more energy than the others. Now the atoms in a body some of the atoms in the body will have higher energy than the other atoms. So any atom which has got a higher energy tends to displace the atom having a lower energy. This displacement of atoms from having higher energy displacing the atoms with lower energy is called as diffusion, and the energy that is required for this diffusion to take place is called as activation energy. So you have a body with atoms. Now that some of the atoms have a higher energy, so the atoms which have a higher energy generally tend to displace an atom with the lower energy. This displacement phenomenon is called as diffusion, and the amount of energy that is required for this diffusion to take place is called as activation energy. Now some of the atoms will change positions under equilibrium position also. So this is called as self-diffusion. Now in self-diffusion you will not see any visible dimensional change. Now as you increase the temperature, definitely there will be a greater rate of diffusion. Now what is coefficient of diffusion? It is a characteristic of a given element and is defined as the amount of diffusion. Now imagine one atom undergoing a diffusion across a given unit area. So one atom undergoing diffusion across a given unit area, for example centimeter, which can be measured in centimeter square, through 1 unit thickness, that is in centimeters, in 1 unit time, that is in seconds. So when the atom moves across a given area, for example 1 centimeter square, across a given thickness, that is 1 centimeter, and this change takes place in unit time, for example 1 second. So that is called as coefficient of diffusion. It is designated as capital D. Now what is the meaning of adhesion and bonding? Now adhesion is the force that causes two substances to attach when they are brought into intimate contact with each other. So two substances tend to adhere to each other when they are brought into intimate contact. For example, now the example that I will be taking in this situation are two glass slabs, since we come across that very often. So if you are going to bring two glass slabs to each other and if they manage to adhere, that is called as adhesion. Now they occur between molecules of different substances. This force is called as adhesion. When molecules of the same substance are attracted, it is called as cohesion. So molecules of different substances is called as adhesion. When the molecules of the same substances are attracted, it is called as cohesion. Now sometimes two substances may not adhere and you want them to adhere. So you add something in between those two substances and make them adhere. So when this phenomenon takes place, the material that you place in between the two substances which you want to adhere is called as the adhesive, and the material to which it is applied is called as the adherent. So if you want two pieces to adhere, the pieces are called as adherents, and what you are using in between is called as the adhesive. Now what is the meaning of mechanical bonding? Now this type of bonding is generally done in dentistry, and it is accomplished between two substances. For example, penetration of an adhesive in submicroscopic irregularities. That means, for example, crevices and pores. Generally, when you want a restorative material like composite to adhere to the tooth structure. Now, if you're just going to put composite on the tooth structure, it is not going to adhere. So what is generally done is that the surface is first made rough by the application of an acid, and the acid is then washed away, which leaves the surface of the tooth in a roughened situation, and then an adhesive is applied, which is also called as a bonding agent, and then the composite restorative material is then adhered to the tooth structure. So this is called as mechanical bonding. As I had mentioned earlier, this mechanism is commonly used in dentistry. Now, to mechanically bond, you need to make microscopic pores in the tooth structure. Now, this is generally done by addition of phosphoric acid to tooth structure. And this procedure is called as acid etching. Once acid etching takes place, you then apply a bonding agent, which is an adhesive which is applied over the tooth structure, and then you add the restorative material like composite, which then adheres to tooth structure. Now let us come to another phenomenon called as surface energy. Now generally the atoms of the surface of a solid are not equally attracted in all directions. Generally you have a solid that is made up of atoms. The atoms are distributed in the solid equally. Now the atoms need to be, the atoms are generally attracted by other atoms. So within the body there is no problem, as the atoms generally are attracted by all the other atoms within the body. But the atoms at the surface of the solid cannot generally gets attracted to the atoms that are present below the surface. But what about the area that's above the surface? So generally, because of that, the atoms want to get attracted to other atoms that are above the surface. Because of this, there is it creates a phenomenon on the surface called as surface tension. For example, the surface of silver, platinum and gold adsorb oxygen readily. Adsorbing is absorbing in the at the surface level, not within the body, only at the surface level. So the oxygen in the air generally reacts with the silver, platinum and gold and forms oxides. Now silver forms a primary bond with the oxygen. Now what kind of bond will the atoms of silver form with the oxygen? So here it is a primary bond. It is not a secondary bond, it is a primary bond. So this bond generally leads to the formation of silver oxide, and since it is a chemical bond, this addition is called as chemisorption. Greater the surface energy, greater is the capacity for adhesion. So the surface energy, if it's a higher surface energy, the capacity for adhesion will be more. As you can see here, these are the atoms that are present within the solid. So as long as the atoms are within the solid, it gets attracted in all directions. You can see it gets attracted in all directions. But what about the atoms that are there on the surface of the solid? Here it will get attracted to atoms that are within the solid. But what about here? Now here there are no atoms for it to react with or to adhere to. So here generally this leads to a lot of tension on the surface because these atoms want to bond with other atoms. So this particular tension on the surface is called as surface tension. Now if the surface tension is high, it can easily bond with other materials. But if the surface tension is low, that means for some reason the atoms do not want to bond with other atoms on the surface with the atoms of other substances, then the surface tension reduces. In that case, the surface is not readily wettable with a adhesive. So that means even if you put an adhesive, it may not wet this surface. So higher the surface tension, you will have better bonding with other materials. Now that leads us to the term wetting. Now as I had mentioned before, if the atoms of the solid want to join with the atoms of another substance, in that case when you apply an adhesive, it generally tends to spread evenly on the surface. This spreading of the adhesive evenly on the surface is called as wetting the surface. So generally if you want to have two solid objects, like let us say two glass slabs, you bring them together but they do not adhere. Hence you put a layer of water in between and then make them adhere, then they adhere very well. Now this is because of the phenomenon of wetting. The water wets the surface of the glass slabs, hence causing them to adhere. Now what we see on the glass slabs is generally a flat surface, but on a microscopic level they are not flat. They have got what are called as hills and troughs. So when you bring two glass slabs together, only the hills contact, the troughs do not contact. So when you put a layer of water, the layer of water generally tends to fill in these troughs and cause a flat surface. So when the surface becomes absolutely flat, there is a tendency for the two substances to adhere. So when the distance between the two surfaces is more than 0.0007 micrometer, the attraction is negligible. That means if that is a distance between the two surfaces, then the surfaces are not going to adhere. So you have fluids that flow into these irregularities. So wherever there are troughs, the fluid generally tends to flow. So once the fluid flows, it forms a flat surface. So whenever there is a flat surface, the two substances can adhere. Now generally this is possible only when liquid flows easily over the entire surface and adheres to the solid. If the liquid does not flow completely on the solid, then there is no adhesion taking place. So this property of the adhesive to flow on the surface is called as wetting. Now for wetting to take place, cleanliness of the surface is very important. For example, an oxide film on a metallic surface inhibits the contact of an adhesive. So once a metallic surface has got an oxide layer formed, it will inhibit the contact of an adhesive. So the surface has got to be absolutely clean. Now surface energy of some substances is very low, which inhibits any kind of wetting on their surface. So as I said, if the surface energy or surface tension of the substances is low, they will not attract the atoms of another substance. So when that happens, when you apply an adhesive on the surface, it will not wet the surface. Now wetting of the surface is dependent on an angle called as the contact angle. Now it is the angle formed by the adhesive with the adherent. So once you have an adhesive on their adherent, it forms an angle called as the contact angle. Smaller the contact angle, better the wetting. As you can see here, the contact angle is practically 0. Now this is the contact angle here. You can see this is a contact angle. Now this contact angle is an obtuse angle. This is an acute angle, but still it is a very sizable angle. It's at 45 degrees, here it's 112 degrees. So here you see it is at 7 degrees. So smaller the contact angle, better is the adhesive. So as the angle reaches 0, the adhesive is the best. So as the angle increases, the use of the adhesive reduces. Now addition to tooth structure. Now generally the tooth structure has got a very high surface energy. So application of fluoride generally tends to reduce the surface tension of the tooth structure. So when the surface tension of the tooth structure reduces, it inhibits the deposition of plaque. Similarly, when we see decay at the margins of restorations, it can be associated with the lack of adhesion between the restoration and the tooth, and also considering the fact that most of the restorative materials have high surface energy. So when you put a restorative material or any, for example, cements, it generally leads to a very high surface energy on the surface of the restoration. So when the surface energy is very high, as we had already discussed before, there is a tendency to accumulate debris because it has got the power to attract. So that brings us to the conclusion. So what do we conclude from this? Now generally in the progress of research in the field of obtaining a truly adhesive filling and also to find a simplified technique of placement is continuing. So we want a filling that is generally adhesive and with a simplified technique of placement. Now there is a possibility of developing an adhesive film forming material that could be topically applied. So you, for example, you have fluoride applications. So something similar to that, you have the research is going on to find a topically applied material, so which can be applied to the enamel surface to reduce its surface energy. So enamel has got a very high surface energy, which generally tends to attract food materials. So you have the formation of plaque, which can later lead to formation of calculus. So this is generally reduced by the application of a material which can reduce its surface energy. So lesser the surface energy, lesser is the formation of plaque onto the tooth. So how does this act? It acts by creating a barrier to the formation of plaque and deposition of calculus. I hope you have understood this basic class, which really forms the basis of understanding dental materials. I had a very good time presenting it to you. Thank you.